Good morning, everybody. Mestre Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Mestre Vibes, episode 44. Today, we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to catch you guys up on what's going on with the documentary Brazilian Soul in the Heart of Asia. Brazilian Soul in Asia. The whole project is coming together incredibly well. There's so much to talk to you guys about, and a lot of the stuff here was on the last behind the scenes video that I made. So if you want to check that out on Patreon, you can check it out. And here we go. So this whole last week, I was super busy getting things done. My family and I, we moved from where we were living to a new place, and we're a lot closer to the academia. So things have become really convenient and simple. So I get here a little bit early. Today I got in at 7:30 a.m. and I'm ready to go. Actually, it's 7:30 now, so I'm already ready to go. So it's just saving me a lot of time. Calculating, it's going to save me about 180 hours a week and just going back and forth. So I am feeling fantastic, inspired, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that it was a beautiful day in Tokyo. Of course, it's cold, but it's still gorgeous. Nice and sunny, and things are moving. I want to get this done before the construction across the street and next door gets started. Here we go. So my whole project, how it's evolving, is become very interesting and very, very intellectual, yet approachable. So how am I doing this? First, this project is coming from a special place. In 2012, I graduated from Waseda University Graduate School of Asian Pacific Studies here in Tokyo, Japan. The project, the degree is an international relations degree with, you can focus on different things. For me, as I've mentioned before, my main focus has always been cultural anthropology, and the teacher I worked under, Dr. Roberts, who was an amazing teacher, is one of the foremost, she just recently retired, one of the foremost experts on contemporary Japanese culture. Before I could write my thesis, Brazil in the Land of the Rising Sun, a focus on globalization, identity, cross-cultural politics, and ethnicity here in Japan, and how the Japanese market and Japanese culture imports and adapts Afro-Brazilian culture, and then at a wider, how they import and adapt foreign culture. So before I could even do that, my professor, Dr. Roberts, made sure that I was really, really well versed in contemporary Japanese culture. How could I talk about the importation of Brazilian culture if I didn't understand how the culture that was importing it was seeing it, and how they react to it, and how they bring it in, and all that. So when I finished my thesis, I decided that I came to the conclusion, it's really, really interesting how we think about things, especially when you're coming from a place like the United States, and especially with, let's say, American education, with our long history of racial politics in the United States. When you come from, let's say, in a culture or an academic background, or you teach something of ethnic value, we always have to think about how people see it and how the different cultures receive it, export it, and what's the value of each culture. And at the end of everything, I really had a lot of questions for myself. One was, is there a difference between cultural importation, globalization, and then the difference between cultural appropriation, right? Cultural appropriation is when you just steal a culture, and that's a big topic in the United States. The difficulty with cultural appropriation and globalization is that depending on who's talking about it, you see the different things. I remember a famous case in the United States by a Supreme Court. I don't know if it was a Supreme Court judge or like a state judge, but the issue was, it's kind of crazy, but was pornography. And the judge said, I know it when I see it. For me, as a person who's been involved with cultural identity, ethnic studies, minority studies, and everything I've been doing for a professional career, I kind of feel I'm at the same place. I know it's cultural appropriation versus appreciation when I see it. And I guess that's a very subjective view. And I'm very aware that I have my own bias and my own predispositions to how I see things and how I see people doing things. It's always interesting when people say like, the word culture, and I've mentioned this a lot, and people think it's just a simple word that has a lot to, it's so easy to understand, but actually the dynamics, it's studied as a science, and unless you've done the research, the background, all that stuff, it's not as simple as you think. But I guess anybody would say that about something they've dedicated their professional career to, right? I always bring up the IT. If you've been keeping up on IT, or if you're a medical or lawyer and you got to constantly keep up on new things, then you evaluate it because you've put a lot of work into it, such as what I've done. I've put a lot of work into it. And this led me to the conclusion of my thesis being very interesting. There's a lot of levels of cultural appropriation in Asia, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Judging whether something is good or bad when it comes to cultural appropriation is very difficult because it's not like something that's just like black and white where you have a copyright or you own something. And because of the ambiguity, because of the fuzziness on who has the right to do something, as I mentioned, just because you're black Brazilian from the favela doesn't mean you know anything about Brazilian culture, but then you can be a white North American who spent a lot of time and doing and promoting the culture. So Mestre Batata always says, right, Capoeira belongs to the people who practice it. So I guess culture belongs to the people who practice it. In that way, it becomes, my favorite expression in Capoeira I've learned years ago is, você não tem que ir na casa suja para saber que a sua tá limpa, which means you don't have to go to a dirty house to know your house is clean. And when it comes to culture, one of the biggest influences in my research and understanding is Dr. Matthews, who talks about currency, cultural currency. For example, when you're the first movers in hip-hop, like in Japan, you get a lot of cultural currency. You get a lot of value added to what you do, same as capoeira. You get a lot of value because people want to be near you. People want to get information for you. People want to be connected to you because you're a representative or you're a conduit for this culture. It almost becomes like social credit, right? But we call it a cultural currency by Dr. Matthews. And I go into that a lot. At the end of the day, once the second we talk about it being cultural currency, I can no longer say cultural appropriation for myself because my business mind side says, okay, then make a better product, right? I always felt in my life like, people were like, when I first came to Japan, you're struggling, you're running around. And I recently saw a video of a Japanese capoeira group on YouTube, and I was like, no é minha praia, it's not my beach. It's not what I'm interested in. And even though it was a large group, and I hope it's doing really well, as a person who's deep involved in capoeira and Brazilian culture, I could see there was no Brazilian culture involved in that group. By the energy, like I said, when I see it, I know it. And there was a lot of people, and they were doing dance, and there was no swing, no feeling. The band was very technical, and Japanese tend to overtrain something to where they lose the feeling of what they're doing. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way they adapt culture, how they see it, right? Over practice, over copy, and over technical is what they strive for. And that's fine. for those people who come from a more relaxed or a more fluid flow culture, such as Brazilian culture or Latin culture, then we see that it takes away from the feeling, right? It becomes too rigid. And I've told this story before when I first came to Japan, and I was with my, there's like a big brother to me, Robson Amaral, great Brazilian musician, Afro-Brazilian. He was in one of the people I interviewed for my thesis. We were going to an event when we were part of the Shango show, which was like a show that traveled all over Japan doing cultural performance, Brazilian cultural performance with music, dance. I did the capoeira, and we traveled all over Japan, high schools, festivals, to introduce Brazilian culture, sponsored by the Mombu Gakusho, which is the Ministry of Education. And we go to this large theater in Japan. By the way, Japan during the bubble era spent so much on theaters because they had so much extra money that you could go to the countryside, and some of them are falling apart. A lot of them, I'm sure, more now. But these gorgeous Carnegie Hall level theaters, which you just like, how, because during the bubble they just needed to spend money. The local governments get money from the government, and they would create these beautiful halls. But anyways, back to the story. We get to the hall, and I can hear Peruvian music, like the flute, the Andes music. And it's gorgeous, right? I'm like, oh, this is nice. That's cool. But like, I'm not really paying attention. And we're behind the curtain. We still haven't seen who's playing. And Hobson says, oh, that's an all Japanese band. And being young, naive, unintelligent, or unexperienced in the situation, I think, wow, that's kind of racist to say you don't even know. Like, you haven't seen who's playing. Then a few minutes later, we see, and it's an all Japanese band. They've got the full clothes and everything, and the Andean clothes, the big, ponchos and everything. And I was curious, I'm like, wow, wait a minute. How did you know that it was an all Japanese band? So I'm curious, like, well, wait a minute. How can you know from any? And I asked him later, and he was really kind and sweet. And he goes, it just didn't have that bounce, that swing, that flavor that Latinos have. And then I thought about it as they did a second stage, and I was like, wow, you're right. It's very technical. It's recordable technical, but it's, for me now, it's like, if you think about it, it's just like if I have when I make a loop soundtrack or a loop recording, I mean, it's perfect, but it's still a loop, and you can feel that it's very mechanical. That's the word, mechanical. So that's a big thing for me. It's like, I'll know it when I see it. And a lot of that's going to be the base of what I do for this project. When I'm traveling here in Asia and whatnot, I'm going to be, sharing my opinion. So the documentary is going to be coming from not whether it's good or bad, whether it's authentic or cultural appropriation, but how I interpret it through my years of experience, and of course, through my feeling, subjectivity, and the best that I can do to present how I see the growth of Brazilian culture in Asia, the Brazilian soul, right? And I'm sitting here thinking, what's going to be the best process to do this? And that's where this week got so busy, guys. It got so busy. I was going to lose my mind. No, I'm just kidding. I still always teaching my classes, training, and doing a lot more. But this year, YouTube, we say YouTube sensei, right? YouTube teacher. I saw so many great videos on film and documentary production, everything from lighting, pre-production, post-production. And there's so many people doing great videos, just amazing videos all over the place. A lot of them are really short and right to the point. Things that we used to, one thing about academics, I think sometimes became to commercialize this. You have to stretch it out. Some classes are stretched out, so you could have done it in a seminar of a week or two, but you have to go, the full semester because people are paying. But a lot of people are putting together some great, helpful material. So my thesis is really taking form, and I'm getting my equipment together, and I'm planning things, and things are moving forward. And the hardest thing is trying to organize the people on the other end. And that's why I decided that I want to do this. Originally, I was thinking more focusing on other people, but as I'm watching these documentary and helpful videos, it says you need to have a main character. What's the main goal of your documentary? So for us, Brazilian soul in Asia through the eyes of Mestre Sucuri. I consider myself a qualified person to be able to do this. I can easily move throughout different groups and environments. And when I ask questions and reflect from a first person point of view, a lot of stuff that I want to do. I guess the hardest thing that I'm thinking about right now is really going to be like, a lot of camera angles. It's really interesting how many documentary filmmakers use a lot of different camera angles. Everything from like eyes only shots, looking over the shoulder shots, like something called the cowboy shot, which was pretty cool. Wide angle, everything. And I'm going to be pulling all of this stuff together and starting to write out how I want to proceed on this. Most importantly, how I want to ask questions and how I want to interpret things as best I can from the base of not only an academic professional, but a mastery of capoeira and someone who's highly involved with Brazilian music and culture for many years. And the goal won't be to shame anyone or to just say it's not authentic, or it's because people can say I'm not authentic. That's just opinion. What I do want to say is I will talk about like music quality level, pronunciation, harmony, swing, understanding, and probably a lot of these things will come as I'm doing the workshops. I'll see where people lack information, and hopefully by doing that, they'll be like, okay, wow, maybe they can grow a little bit and appreciate it a little bit more. It's kind of funny, man. The other day I saw a short where somebody I like a lot in Korea, Capoeira Angola teacher, was part of inviting Mestre Cobra Mansa, and they asked him, what's the one thing you would tell Korean capoeira students? And he said the thing that I've been saying since day one I came to Japan. You can't just like capoeira for the movement. You got to like it for the music, for the lyrics, for the culture and everything. And really, it's let's say the easiest way to explain is like you go to if you've ever had real Mexican food and then come to Japan and go to like one of the Mexican restaurants back in the day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They call it Mexican food. The restaurant looks very Mexican, but the food isn't Mexican. It's like a cheap imitation. And unless you've had that experience and understand it, and then you won't be able to feel what I feel. But hopefully I'll be able to share that in a positive way. I'm not trying to be everybody's friend, but I am trying to create an image of, or an understanding of the importance of, or the passion that I have for what I do, and I want to share that with all of you guys. When one of the main questions was, who is the video for? And the video and this stuff is going to be eventually on YouTube, but it's for you guys first, here, everybody on Patreon, because you guys support me. It's a motivating factor that you guys do a lot for me, and I'm just really happy and grateful every day. So I'm going to start getting things done today because there's a lot to do, and planning, and a little bit more equipment, and I need another camera so that I can have 2 cameras rolling, lighting, There's so many different things that need to get done, but we're going to get there. As we move through this, I'll have more updates and more information. Guys, if you have any questions, put some comments and I'll answer them. Most importantly, right now, I am getting my thesis revised. I am doing it, working on it today, right after this. It's going really well. It's my thesis revised for you guys and with some updated information. That was written in 2012, so 14 years ago, and how my thinking has changed and how I've grown not only as a master, but as an academic will also be in there. So there's a lot of updated commentary in the new thesis. So that'll be done as soon as I can get it done. It's flowing really well, and I'll get that, guys, out to you. I'll probably put that, that'll be on here on Patreon for you guys for free to download. And I'll also make it available in case anybody who's not a Patreon member wants to download it and buy it, okay? Because Patreon now has digital files that you can sell. Guys, have a fantastic day. Mestre Sukuri, Mestre Vibes coming to you from Tokyo. Let's get to it. Let's go.